Hello, good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today we have some genuinely surprising news from the dev blog. Some things that I certainly did not think were going to happen at all, especially to the ships that it happened to. This one's quite the roller coaster, guys, and really coming out of nowhere almost. But anyway, if you want to read along as I read aloud, the link to the dev blog will be posted in the description down below. So go check that out if you want to. Well, I'm going to read pretty much everything on this one. It's not too long, but if you want to check it out, the link is down there for you. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. So PT 10.8 balance changes. The changes will be applied to German aircraft carriers, FDR, and other ships. Having analyzed combat performance and taken player feedback into account, we've changed the characteristics of several ships. These changes were required in order to carefully adjust the balance of the mentioned warships. As usual, we'll monitor the impact of the changes and the general balance of the ships and apply changes if deemed necessary. So the Parzival, the Manfred von Richthofen, the Graf Zeppelin and the Graf Zeppelin B changed parameters of bombers. Increase the chance of hitting two bombs at once in the internal dispersion ellipse. That's right, boys. Graf Zeppelin, after years of just getting kicked in the teeth with nerfs and global changes, has finally gotten a single buff. And they don't even tell us how much of a buff it is. They've just increased the chance of two bombs hitting inside the ellipse, which in Graf Zeppelin is pretty freaking rare. You can kind of finesse the way that the dive bombers dive to drop the bombs in a way that they'll kind of hit within the ellipse, but yeah, it's not something that happens very often with the Graf Zeppelin. Is this going to resurrect the Graf Zeppelin from the dead and make her a powerhouse yet again in the game? No, it's not, but by no means. But it's a step in the right direction for the Zeppelin. God, I made like I think a 25, almost 30-minute video just going over the nerfs that have gone to the Graf Zeppelin, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a big old list. If you want to check that video out, I'll link it in the description or on screen here somewhere. But yeah, happy days. My favorite CV, her scouting planes can now maybe bomb an actual target every now and then. Graf Zeppelin, of course, being my favorite CV because it's an absolute meme with its secondaries. And you can go look at the gameplay video from the Convoys video I did a couple of days ago to see what the ship's really like now and how RNG these bombs really are. But it's not only the Graf Zeppelin getting this buff, it's the Parzival and the Richthofen. And some of y'all might be thinking, well, is the Richthofen like overpowered? When it first got out, yes, it was freaking nuts. But they changed the ellipse size and, again, the way that the bombs fell. And boy, did that thing's average damage absolutely freaking plummet. You went from being able to get at least 2 citadels on larger battleships at tier 10, like the GK, the Kremlin, to where, like, good luck even getting one and even getting other bombs to hit the ship. It was crazy how RNG based that MVR went to after those ellipse changes. And before, I mean, you could even reliably double citadel smaller battleships like Tirpitz's, Bismarck's, Iowa's, if you managed to avoid their superstructure. It was quite crazy how good the MVR was. The MVR was outright broken when it was released, but that bomb change and that reticle nerf just hit the MVR in the freaking head. And now it's will it bring the ship back into the limelight a bit more? Maybe the AP rockets were kind of keeping it more relevant now because the AP rocket planes, they have a much shorter machine gun time, so a much shorter delay, so they're still kind of usable. But this will probably make, you'll probably see 1 or 2 more MVRs, especially once these changes go live. And these changes apparently are on the PT server right now. It's actually updating in the background as we talk. All right, so the really big news, FDR has been nerfed, or is getting nerfed when these changes go live. What I didn't see this coming. I did not see this coming. I did not think they would nerf a tier 10 steel ship. We'll talk about that aspect of it after, but let's go through what's being changed. So, change parameters of torpedo bombers. Torpedo arming distance increased from 517 to 545 meters. Torpedo spread width increased by 5%. Change parameters of bombers. Maximum bomb damage decreased from 11,200 to 10,600. HE bomb armor penetration capacity decreased from 67 to 64 millimeters, which we'll talk about that in a second. Changes of HE bombs causing a fire on target decreased from 64 to 60%. Okay, so before we talk about the changes in more detail, they shouldn't be nerfing especially high tier reward ships after they get released. Now, some ships do need them, like the Thunderer. The Thunderer definitely needed to be nerfed, but like I've said many a time about the Thunderer, those issues should have definitely been caught in testing. I don't know how look at a ship like the Thunderer that has 18-inch guns that are by far the most accurate battleship guns at its tier, except for like the Shikishima with Deadeye on it, or the Slava with Deadeye on it, and say, yes, this ship that can have a 22 base second reload time and reach out to 24 kilometers and has a 64% chance of starting a fire per HE shell at tier 10 with a fire build on it. Yes, it should have a 22 second reload and also have absolute god tier AP on top of that, and have a 12 kilometers detection range and a 10-second base rudder shift time. Whoever put that ship together and whoever that ship got ran by should have immediately seen that this ship was going to be a bit of an issue. Same with the FDR. A carrier with planes that are tankier than tier 10 cruisers that can absolutely god alpha strike targets, especially large targets like battleships and larger cruisers, and have just an insane number of planes per squadron, and you only need 2 of them to get through to drop a strike with all of this ordnance in it. And as you can see by the footage you're watching right now, the squadrons are absolutely massive. So this ship is so easy to just farm damage in. And as you're watching right now, I'm a terrible CV player. I will not hide from that. I've never said I'm a good CV player. The only CV I even have good stats in is the Graf Zeppelin, ironically. But yeah, I'm a terrible CV player, but I'm able to do quite decently well with the FDR at tier 10. I mean, this match you're watching right now, I end up with like 150,000 damage at the end of it, which is, you know, if you're a good FDR player, that's like, I think it's on like the medium-ish to lower side, but for CVs in general, for tier 10 in general, that's pretty decent damage at tier 10. And I'm able to do that in an FDR. Now, there's certainly the argument behind, you know, the battle influence and being able to take out certain targets and stuff, and yes, that's a different discussion for a different day. But in terms of just farming and, you know, harassing a ship, the FDR, it's so easy. A CV player like me can do it. So these issues, again, should have been caught up in testing to where these changes wouldn't be needed, especially after people spend this much steel on this ship. This ship was, and still is, the most expensive steel ship in the armories. 33,000-ish steel? That's more than a few seasons of clan battles, of ranked, and I think I went through like 2 or 3 dockyard ships too, getting steel to get this ship. And I, of course, buy the dockyard ships to do the reviews for you guys. And once you do that, you can go back and get the steel. It's a couple, depending on the dockyard, you know, it's a few thousand steel that you can get. And I went through several of those, several seasons of ranked, several seasons of clan battles to get this ship. And now it's being nerfed. And other players are going through that same thing too. So this shouldn't be happening. The FDR needed it, don't get me wrong. In reality, as we're about to go over too, the changes aren't massive, but we've seen, like with the Thunderer, they're doing very small changes at a time to bring the ships into balance. Like the Thunderer right now is in a pretty balanced spot. You have to choose between having the 22-second reload time on the guns, or do you want the 24-kilometer range? You know, it's all up to that last mod slot now. you have to trade something off rather than getting everything in the base package with the reload module. So we'll see what happens with the FDR. But the changes right now, they're changes that will probably, that they will bring the average damage down, of course, but some of them more so than others. So the torpedo arming distance, you have 30 more meters on that arming distance. And that's the spot of the reticle, as you can see, that's not filled in with the green highlighted color. That's the distance the torpedoes need to travel to arm before they hit the target. If the target's inside that distance, the torpedoes will not arm and will just bounce off of the hull. Okay, so that's a little bit longer now. Not a major deal. This might be, I'm not exactly sure how 5% is going to affect the torpedo spread, but that being increased by 5%, the torpedoes are definitely one of the highlights, and I mean, there's a lot of highlights with the FDR, but one of the bigger highlights with the FDR, because you drop so frickin' many of them. You drop 8 in a salvo, 4 per plane, and if all these hit, you're doing like something like 20-something thousand damage to a ship if you can get all 8 to hit, which you can only really do on large ships like battleships and other aircraft carriers too. So that spread being increased by 5%, that's probably going to cause another torpedo or two to miss, which again will bring the average damage down per torpedo run with the FDR if you can manage to get most of the torps to hit the target now, which is going to be harder to do by a little bit. Again, 5%, I'm not sure, because the spread's actually quite big already. So we'll have to see how exactly that changes it. The bombers. Okay, so the maximum bomb damage being decreased from 11,200 to 10,600. That's again a step in the right direction, and the fire chance being brought down from 64 to 60% is good too, because, and oddly enough, I had actually had a difficult start to this game, probably because I was playing Graf Zeppelin a lot in convoys mode. I wasn't used to the handling of the FDR and the way the bombs dropped and stuff, and I actually missed a couple of times with, and I know it sounds kind of dumb too, missing with as much ordnance as this CV can throw out at once, but I missed a couple of times too. But as you can see, when I can manage to hit even just most of the ordnance on target, this ship has no problem starting fires, because each bomb has a 64% chance of starting a fire. With as many bombs as the FDR drops in one go, it is beyond easy to get 2 or 3 fires started on a ship with this thing. So that being toned down is pretty good too. Now, the penetration capability, I don't know what they're going for here, because you can still pin Kremlin's deck armor. They're dropping from 67 to 64 millimeters, but you can still pin Kremlin's deck, which means you can pin every other BB's deck. So yeah, maybe it was getting through to some light cruisers' citadels, and the devs don't want it to do that. So that's why they're decreasing the pin. I don't know. That seems like to be a strange decision. Unless maybe there were some cases, again, like where this thing was absolutely just dumpstering light cruisers and just Thanosing them out of existence from like max health. Because, I mean, again, 11,200 damage, maximum damage, if you citadel the target with these bombs. And with as many bombs as this thing drops, you can, again, absolutely obliterate some light cruisers if you manage to citadel them. So I don't know what's up with that. If someone knows, please explain in the comments down below. So FDR being nerfed. Overall, it is definitely needed in my opinion, and these small changes, again, are the way they need to go. We'll see how it does after this, but still, I don't think this is going to bring the average damage down a lot. It might be able to cut back on some of the frustration with the HE chances being cut on some of the bombs, but we'll see. Alright, the Nevsky. Change the repair party consumable. Restoration of hit points after receiving damage to the citadel increased from 10% to 33%. Fun fact, this isn't unbuff. This is a bug fix. The Nevsky was supposed to have this from the get-go, and now, after how long have the Soviet cruiser split ships been out for? What? Good God. Almost a year now, I think? Or like 10 months? 9 months at least? They're finally fixing that bug. So... yeah, took you long enough, Wargame, but you finally got around to it. Maybe they were letting it ride and seeing how it did with the 10% Citadel health regen, and they decided, nah, it needs the 33%. I mean, the Nevsky is a really strong ship. It was doing, from what I've seen at least, quite fine, and I've played the Nevsky quite a bit too. I didn't really know that this was a bug at all. I thought it was just like that, and when I saw this dev blog, I was like, why in the world's the the Nevsky getting this buff. Then I did some Googling, and turns out, yeah, it's a bug. So that's been fixed, so Nevsky commanders rejoice. Alright, so that's it for the dev blog today. Quite a few interesting changes, and again, just this whole dev blog, I just stared at it a couple of seconds when I saw it for the first time, because I really didn't believe they were actually making these changes. But yeah, happy days for those that play Graf Zeppelin, you fellow Graf Zeppelin captains. Let us rejoice in our bombs having a slightly higher chance of hitting the target now. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. When we did 30,000 subs, just past 28,400 a few days ago, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. I will be live streaming right here on the channel and on Twitch tonight from 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time to 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time, so please come out for that. Hope you're all having a wonderful Friday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.